The desert was silent in the way only dead places could be. Not the peaceful silence of sleep, but the heavy, crushing quiet that came after something terrible had happened. The alien diplomat lay half-buried in scorched sand, his once pristine ceremonial armor cracked and smoking. Blue-green blood leaked from beneath the shattered plating, hissing softly as it touched the overheated ground. Above him, the sky shimmered with heat, the wreckage of his diplomatic vessel burning like a fallen star in the distance. Ambassador Zurith of the Voltari Union had survived wars, political assassinations, and deep space piracy. But crashing on a primitive, unregistered death world? That was new. His translator implant flickered, struggling to function. His breathing was labored, each breath sharp and painful as his secondary lung collapsed further. He knew the statistics well. A lone diplomat, no extraction signal, no rescue fleet within light years. Death was no longer a possibility, it was an expectation. Footsteps crunched through the sand. Zurith's hand twitched toward the plasma emitter strapped uselessly to his side, its power cell long since melted during atmospheric entry. His compound eyes focused, trying to make sense of the approaching shape through pain and heat distortion. Small, bipedal, unarmored, a child, the being wore worn fabric clothes, dust-stained and faded by the sun. A small backpack hung crookedly on his shoulders. His dark hair stuck to his forehead with sweat and his shoes were mismatched, one clearly held together with tape. The child stopped a few steps away, staring openly. No fear, no hesitation, just curiosity. Zurith's mandibles clicked weakly in disbelief. Of all the ways to die, being discovered by a primitive juvenile was not one he had prepared for. The boy tilted his head. "Whoa," he whispered. "You look really hurt." The translator implant buzzed, then, astonishingly, converted the sounds into coherent meaning. Zurith's eyes widened. The child was speaking Galactic Standard, poorly. Broken but understandably. "You understand me?" Zurith croaked. The boy nodded eagerly. "Yeah, kinda. My dad says languages are just patterns. Once you listen long enough, they start making sense." Zurith coughed, a wet, painful sound. "Your father taught you xenolinguistics." The boy frowned, thinking, "I dunno what that is, he just fixes radios and engines and like everything." Zurith almost laughed until pain reminded him his ribs were shattered. The child stepped closer, eyes wide with concern now. "You're bleeding blue," he said seriously. "That's probably not good, huh?" Zurith managed a weak chuckle. "No, it is not." The boy squatted beside him, inspecting the damage with the intense focus only children possessed. "What happened to your ship?" he asked. Zurith turned his gaze toward the smoking wreckage half buried in sand. "Ambushed. Pirates. My vessel was diplomatic, unarmed." The boy's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "No," Zurith agreed. "It is not." For a moment only the wind spoke between them. Then the boy smiled, bright, sudden, and completely out of place in the scorched wasteland. "It's okay, though." Zurith blinked. "What is okay?" The boy pointed a dusty thumb toward the distant hills. "My dad can fix it." Zurith stared, then, despite the agony tearing through his body, he laughed. A sharp, broken sound, but laughter nonetheless. "Child," he wheezed, "your species has not yet achieved interstellar flight. Your technology is centuries behind mine, even if I survived long enough." "My dad fixed a helicopter once," the boy interrupted confidently. Zurith paused. What?" "And a tractor, and our neighbor's solar generator, and my bike after it fell into the river." The alien diplomat's laughter turned into coughing again. "You misunderstand," Zurith said gently. "My ship is not broken, it is destroyed. Its core melted, its systems fused. Your father, no matter how skilled, cannot." "He can," the boy insisted, standing up straight. "He always can." The wind picked up, blowing sand around their feet. Zurith studied the child more carefully now. No fear, no lies, only absolute belief, a dangerous thing. "You should go home, child," Zurith said softly. "This place is not safe." The boy shook his head. "I can't leave you here," he said. "My dad wouldn't like that." Zurith felt something twist inside his chest, something unfamiliar. "Why?" he asked quietly. The boy shrugged. "'Cause he says if you can help someone, you should, even if it's hard." Silence stretched between them. For the first time since his ship had been torn from the sky, Ambassador Zurith felt something he hadn't expected to feel on this forsaken world. Hope, the boy reached into his backpack and pulled out a half-crushed water bottle, holding it out carefully. "Here," he said, "you look like you need it." Zurith hesitated, then slowly he accepted. The water tasted wrong, flat, warm. Impure, but it was life. And as he drank, watching the sun dip lower toward the horizon, a realization struck him. one that sent a shiver through his damaged frame. If this child's father truly possessed even half the ingenuity the boy believed, then perhaps this forgotten world was not as primitive as the galaxy assumed. Perhaps the boy suddenly grinned again. "Oh, I forgot to ask," he said brightly. "What's your name?" Zurith straightened as much as his injuries allowed. "I am Ambassador Zurith of the Voltari Union." The boy nodded solemnly as if committing it to memory. "I'm Eli," he said, "and don't worry, Ambassador Zurith." He pointed toward the horizon where a small, distant building sat beneath the dying sun. "My dad can fix anything." And for the first time in his long diplomatic career, Zurith wasn't entirely sure that was an exaggeration. The sun was already sinking when they started moving. Ambassador Zurith had not believed the child at first, not truly. He had assumed the boy would run back to his settlement and summon armed adults, or perhaps panic and abandon him entirely. Instead, the human boy, Eli, returned dragging a battered metal cart held together with mismatched bolts and old wire. "Okay," Eli said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "This thing's for hauling scrap, but it'll hold you if we go slow." Zurith stared. The cart was barely large enough for a juvenile of his species, let alone a wounded diplomat weighing nearly 3 times the boy's mass. "It will not work," Zurith said weakly. Eli shrugged. "Dad says everything works if you don't give up on it too fast." And before Zurith could protest further, the boy had already begun wedging him carefully onto the cart, using scraps of cloth and torn fabric to pad the metal frame. Every movement sent pain lancing through Zurith's body, but the boy was gentle. Shockingly gentle, careful of wounds he couldn't possibly understand. When it was done, Eli grabbed the rope at the front of the cart and leaned forward with a grunt. The cart didn't move. He tried again, teeth clenched, still nothing. Zurith felt something twist inside his chest, guilt sharp and unexpected. "Stop," he said quietly. "You will injure yourself." Eli huffed. "Nah. I just need better leverage." He wrapped the rope around his shoulders, dug his shoes into the sand, and pulled. This time the cart lurched forward, slowly, painfully, but it moved. Zurith closed his eyes. No one had ever tried this hard for him before. The desert stretched endlessly, waves of heat shimmering across the sand. Several times, Eli had to stop and rest, hands shaking, chest heaving. Each time, Zurith told him to leave. Each time, the boy refused. "You talk too much for a dying guy," Eli said between breaths. "You'll be fine." Hours passed. When night finally came, the air cooled quickly and unfamiliar stars filled the sky. The boy pointed at a cluster of lights. "That's Orion," he said proudly. "My dad taught me that one." Zurith followed his finger, his multifaceted eyes adjusting. Those stars had other names, other histories. But for the first time in centuries, he wondered what it might be like to see the universe through a single world's eyes. Eventually, lights appeared in the distance. A small, boxy structure, metal siding, solar panels on the roof, antennae sticking out at odd angles. A human dwelling. "You live there?" Zurith asked. "Yep," Eli said, "just me and Dad." The door burst open before they even reached it. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, hair streaked with oil and dust. His eyes locked onto the scene in front of him, his exhausted son dragging a massive, bleeding alien across the sand. Time seemed to stop. "Eli," the man said slowly. "What is that?" The boy beamed. "Dad, I found him in the desert. His ship crashed. He's hurt really bad." The man's eyes never left Zurith. For one long, terrifying moment, Zurith was certain he would be attacked. Then the man did something unexpected. He dropped the wrench in his hand and ran forward. "Jesus, kid," he muttered, kneeling beside Zurith. "What happened to you?" Zurith blinked. The man wasn't afraid. He wasn't screaming. He was assessing injuries. "This is bad," the man muttered. "Real bad, but not unfixable." Zurith stared at him. You understand my words?" The man nodded slowly. "Yeah, translator implant, old model but recognizable." He glanced at his son. "Eli, get the med kit, the big one." The boy sprinted inside. The man turned back to Zurith, eyes sharp and focused. "My name's Mark," he said. "And before you ask, no, I've never treated an alien before, but broken machines are broken machines, and bodies are just machines made of meat." Zurith felt something deep inside him crack. Hope, real, dangerous hope. "You are not afraid?" he asked quietly. Mark snorted. "Buddy, I've rebuilt fusion generators with half my tools missing. You think I'm scared of a hurt alien?" He motioned toward the open doorway. "Let's get you inside. We'll figure the rest out." As they worked together to lift him, Zurith looked past them, at the endless desert, the burning wreckage of his ship in the distance, and the stars beginning to shine overhead. For the first time since his crash, he believed he might live. And somewhere deep within him, a realization formed, one that would one day shake the galaxy. Humans didn't conquer through fleets or fear. They conquered through stubborn compassion. The workshop smelled of oil, metal shavings, and ozone. To Ambassador Zurith, it was overwhelming, an assault of unfamiliar chemical scents and sharp mechanical noises. His sensory organs flared in protest as he was carefully lowered onto a reinforced work table in the center of the room. The walls were cluttered with tools of every imaginable kind. Old and new, alien and human, some clearly repurposed far beyond their original intent. Half-disassembled machines lay open like metal corpses, wires exposed, components scattered in organized chaos. And standing in the middle of it all was Mark, human, unarmored, unafraid. "All right," Mark muttered, pulling on a pair of thick gloves. "Let's see what we're working with." Zurith watched him move, confident, practiced, almost casual, as if repairing a critically injured alien diplomat was just another Tuesday evening chore. "You should be afraid," Zurith said quietly. Mark paused, looking up. "Why?" "Because my species is not known for mercy. If my people discover I was aided by an unregistered world, by you, there will be consequences." Mark snorted softly. "Buddy, I live on the edge of nowhere. Closest thing to a government out here is a broken satellite and a tax drone that hasn't worked in 10 years. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing with curiosity rather than fear. "Besides," he added, "you were bleeding out in my backyard, kinda hard to ignore that." Zurith studied him, no fear, no reverence, no hatred. Only responsibility. The human reached for a scanner, clearly homemade, patched together from scavenged parts and alien components Zurith recognized with shock. "That's Voltari tech," Zurith said slowly. "Where did you acquire it?" Mark grinned. "Trade, salvage, a little bit of luck. Your people lose a lot of stuff out here." Zurith felt something unsettling stir within him. The galaxy believed humans were technologically inferior, dangerous, yes, but primitive. That belief was wrong, very wrong. Mark's scanner hummed, projecting a crude holographic image of Zurith's internal structure. "Okay," Mark muttered. "You've got fractured thoracic plates, ruptured secondary lung, and some kind of energy burn that shouldn't exist." Zurith blinked. "You understand this?" "Not completely," Mark admitted, "but I understand enough." He turned toward a cabinet, pulling out a strange device, half medical instrument, half industrial tool. "Dad," Eli called from the doorway, "is he gonna be okay?" Mark didn't answer immediately, then he knelt beside his son and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but we're gonna try." The boy nodded solemnly, then sat cross-legged on the floor, watching intently. Zurith felt something tighten in his chest, not pain this time, but something heavier. In his culture, children were shielded from hardship, from danger, from the harsh truths of existence. Humans, it seemed, taught their young to face reality head-on. "Hold still," Mark said, activating the device. A surge of energy coursed through Zurith's body, painful but controlled. The machine hummed as it stabilized damaged tissues and sealed ruptured veins with astonishing precision. Zurith gasped. "That device," he said through clenched mandibles, "is not capable of this level of medical repair." Mark frowned. "Shouldn't be, but I modified it." "How?" Mark shrugged. "Trial and error and a lot of exploded prototypes." Zurith almost laughed again, almost. Minutes passed, then an hour. When it was done, the pain had dulled to a manageable ache. Zurith realized something incredible. He was going to live. Mark wiped sweat from his brow and leaned back. "That's the best I can do tonight," he said. "Your body's gonna handle the rest." Zurith looked down at himself in disbelief. "You have just saved the life of a foreign diplomat," he said quietly. "Do you understand what that means?" Mark shrugged. "Means I did the right thing. That act alone could change the relationship between our species." Mark snorted, "Or get us both killed." The alien considered that. "Yes," he admitted, "that is also possible." They shared a strange, silent moment, two beings from opposite sides of the galaxy, united by blood, metal, and stubborn compassion. From the corner of the room, Eli finally spoke. "Does this mean he's gonna be okay?" Mark smiled softly. "Yeah, kid, I think he is." Zurith turned his gaze toward the boy. "You saved my life," he said solemnly. "Both of you." Eli beamed. "Cool," he said. "So when you're better, can you tell me about space battles?" Zurith paused, then despite everything, he laughed, a deep, genuine sound full of wonder. "Yes," he said, "I believe I can do that." Outside, unseen by any of them, a faint signal pulsed silently from the wreckage in the desert. A distress beacon, active, and heading toward the stars. The signal did not scream, it whispered. A thin, encrypted pulse slipped free from the wreckage buried beneath the sand. Weak, damaged, but alive. It crawled through space like a wounded animal, bouncing from relay to relay, ancient protocol activating systems long thought obsolete. And far beyond the little blue world called Earth, someone heard it. Voltari diplomatic fleet, deep space, a tall figure stepped into the glowing chamber, crystalline eyes narrowing as the holographic display flickered to life. Signal identified, announced the ship's AI. Source, diplomatic vessel radiant accord, status destroyed, life signs detected. The chamber fell silent, the figure's mandibles twitched. That ship was lost weeks ago, the commander said slowly, declared unrecoverable. Correct, the AI replied. However, Ambassador Zurith is alive. Shock rippled through the chamber, and the origin of the signal, the commander asked. Unknown planetary body, pre-warp civilization, designation Sol 3. Earth, the commander's eyes hardened. Prepare a retrieval task force, he ordered. If the ambassador lives, we retrieve him. A pause, by any means necessary. Back on Earth, Mark didn't sleep that night. He sat in the workshop, tools laid out beside him, listening to the faint hum of alien technology stabilizing in the corner. Zurith rested on a reinforced cot, breathing evenly now, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Eli had finally passed out in a chair, curled around a blanket, exhaustion claiming him at last. Mark watched them both. Something about the situation bothered him, not fear, not regret. Instinct. The same gut feeling he'd learned to trust during decades of fixing machines no one else could. Something was coming. The workshop lights flickered. Mark froze. The lights steadied, then flickered again. Zurith's eyes snapped open. You feel it, he said quietly. Mark nodded. Power fluctuation. Zurith slowly sat up, wincing. No, that was a long-range ping. Mark's jaw tightened. From who? My people, Zurith replied. Silence fell heavy between them. They know I'm alive, Zurith continued, and they will come. Mark exhaled slowly through his nose. How long? Hours, Zurith said, perhaps less. Mark ran a hand through his hair. Well, he muttered, that's not great. Eli stirred, rubbing his eyes. What's not great? Mark crouched beside him. Buddy, remember how I said sometimes fixing things makes bigger problems? Eli nodded sleepily. This might be one of those times. Zurith studied the boy, something unreadable in his alien gaze. Eli, he said softly, my people do not negotiate the way yours do. If they find me here, they may not care who they hurt. Eli sat up straighter. Then they can't find you, he said simply. Zurith stared. Mark let out a short laugh. Kid, that's not how. Eli jumped to his feet, eyes bright with determination. We hide you, he said. Dad, your workshop has shields, right? And that old jammer thing you built. Mark blinked. Then slowly a grin spread across his face. You know, he said, that might actually work. Zurith felt something shift deep inside his chest. Not fear, not hope, something far more dangerous. Trust. He had been a diplomat his entire life, navigating politics, treaties, and lies. But never had he been protected like this. Not by fleets, not by treaties, but by a tired human mechanic and his stubborn child. Outside, far above the desert, something massive slipped into orbit. And for the first time in galactic history, humanity was about to make first contact not with words, but with defiance. The night sky split open, not with fire, not with thunder, but with light. A tier formed in the heavens above the desert, blue-white energy spiraling outward as space itself bent and peeled apart. The air vibrated with a low, bone-deep hum that rattled tools, windows, and even the ground beneath their feet. Mark stepped outside the workshop, shielding his eyes. Well, he muttered, that's definitely not weather. Eli stood beside him, eyes wide but steady. That's them, isn't it? Zurith emerged slowly behind them, leaning heavily on a metal brace. His voice was low. Yes, the retrieval fleet. Above them, massive silhouettes descended from the rupture in space, sleek, angular warships bristling with energy arrays. They moved with terrifying precision, positioning themselves in a wide formation over the desert. The air itself seemed to vibrate with authority. A beam of light shot downward, stopping mere meters from the ground in front of the workshop. Dust and sand erupted as a tall figure materialized within it, armored in polished obsidian plating, eyes glowing with cold intelligence. The Voltari commander had arrived. Ambassador Zurith, the figure's voice boomed, amplified and echoing unnaturally. You are ordered to return to the fleet immediately. Zurith stepped forward despite his injuries. I will not, he said. A ripple of shock passed through the assembled alien soldiers now forming a perimeter around the homestead. "You are compromised," the commander continued. "Injured, influenced by a pre-warp species, you will be taken." Mark stepped forward. "Hold on," he said firmly. "He's not going anywhere." The commander's gaze shifted to him, cold, assessing. "This matter does not concern you, human." Mark crossed his arms. "He's under my roof. That makes it my problem." Energy weapons hummed to life around them. Eli grabbed his dad's sleeve. "Dad," Mark placed a hand on his son's shoulder without looking away. "It's okay," he said quietly. "I've got you." The commander tilted his head. "You would oppose an interstellar authority for one alien?" Mark smiled faintly. "No," he said. "I'd do it because it's wrong." A pause, then Zurith stepped forward, standing tall despite the pain. "I invoke the right of sanctuary," he declared. The commander stiffened. "That law is obsolete." "Only when convenient," Zurith shot back. "And even you know what it means if invoked before witnesses." The alien ships above shifted uneasily. Mark leaned toward Zurith. "What does it mean?" Zurith didn't look away from the commander. "It means if they harm me or those sheltering me, they declare open hostility against an emerging species." Silence. The commander's gaze flicked toward the sky, toward the other ships watching, recording, toward the countless eyes across the galaxy now undoubtedly tuning in. Eli squeezed his dad's hand. "So they can't hurt us." "They can," Zurith said quietly, "but they won't, not yet." The commander's voice dropped an octave. "This world is not ready for the galaxy," he warned. Mark shrugged. "Maybe, but we're not helpless either." The commander studied the human, this unarmed mechanic standing against warships, and something like hesitation flickered across his expression. "Very well," he said finally. "We will withdraw for now." The ships began to rise. The pressure lifted. The sky slowly returned to normal. As the last vessel vanished into the void, the desert fell silent once more. Eli let out a shaky breath. "Dad, we didn't die." Mark laughed softly, kneeling and pulling him into a hug. "Yeah, buddy, looks like we didn't." Zurith watched the horizon, his voice heavy with awe. "You realize what you've done," he said quietly. "Your world has been marked." Mark glanced at the sky, then back at his son. "Yeah," he said. "But if they're watching, they'll also know one thing." "What's that?" Zurith asked. Mark smiled. "That humans don't back down." Above them, far beyond sight, signals spread across the stars. The galaxy had just learned a dangerous truth. Humanity would not kneel. The stars watched. Across hundreds of systems, data streams lit up as the encounter on Sol 3 spread through diplomatic networks, military archives, and intelligence hubs. The footage, grainy but undeniable, showed a lone human standing between a wounded ambassador and an alien fleet, and not backing down. On the bridge of the Voltari flagship, silence reigned. The commander stared at the replay, mandibles twitching in restrained agitation. Around him, officers whispered in low, uneasy tones. "They should have broken," one muttered. "A pre-warp species does not defy us." "But they did," another replied. The commander's claws curled slowly. "They did more than defy us," he said. "They invoked an ancient law and survived." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on trade stations, in war councils, within species that had ruled space for millennia. The name human began appearing in classified briefings, followed by words like unpredictable, resilient, and dangerously empathetic. Back on Earth, Mark hadn't slept. Neither had Zurith. They sat in the workshop, surrounded by humming equipment and the faint smell of ozone. Outside, the desert was quiet again, too quiet. Eli was drawing on a piece of scrap metal with a marker, sketching a very inaccurate picture of a spaceship. "Do you think they'll come back?" he asked casually. Zurith considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said. "Eventually." Eli nodded. "Okay." Mark raised an eyebrow. "That's it. No panic, no freaking out." Eli shrugged. "If they do, we'll just figure it out again." Zurith felt something twist in his chest. Human children were terrifying. He turned to Mark. "You understand what you've done, don't you?" Mark leaned back against the workbench. "Yeah." I stuck my neck out. "You did more than that," Zurith said quietly. "You challenged an interstellar hierarchy older than your species." Mark chuckled. "Wouldn't be the first broken system I've messed with." Zurith studied him for a long moment. "You could have turned me over," he said. "Earned favor, protection, technology." Mark shook his head. "Doesn't feel right. You were hurt. That's all that mattered." The alien diplomat looked away, something unsteady passing through his eyes. "Your people are dangerous," he said softly. Mark smiled faintly. "We get that a lot." Far beyond Earth in a chamber of living crystal, representatives of dozens of species watched the recording in silence. The moment where the human stepped forward, the moment he refused to yield, the moment the fleet withdrew, a being of light finally spoke. If this species had reached the stars united, it said, they would already rule us. Another voice answered, trembling, they are not conquerors. No, the first replied, they are worse. A pause. They protect. Back on Earth, Zurith stood at the doorway of the workshop, watching the sun rise over the desert. I will have to leave soon, he said. Mark nodded slowly. I figured. My people will demand my return. I cannot deny them forever. Eli looked up, eyes wide. You're leaving? Zurith knelt before him. Yes, but not forever. He placed a small device into the boy's hand, a smooth crystal humming faintly with energy. This will call me, he said, no matter where I am. Eli smiled. Promise you'll come back. Zurith met his gaze. I swear it. As the sun crested the horizon, casting gold across the sand, the alien diplomat straightened his posture. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time in its long history, it was afraid of humans for all the right reasons. The stars burned brighter than usual, or perhaps it only felt that way to Ambassador Zurith as his ship slipped back into real space above Sol 3, Earth. This time, he did not come as a fugitive. He came as a representative of something far greater. Behind him stretched a formation of ships unlike any the galaxy had ever seen before. Not warships, not invaders, observers, witnesses. Because what was about to happen would change galactic history forever. The return Mark felt it before he saw it. The familiar hum in the air, the pressure shift, the way the desert went utterly, impossibly still. He stepped outside his workshop, wiping grease from his hands. Eli, he called, you feel that? The boy ran out beside him, older now, taller, stronger, but with the same bright eyes. Yeah, he said softly, they're back. The sky opened, not violently, not with threat, but like a curtain being gently pulled aside. Ships emerged in perfect formation, elegant and calm. And at their center, a single vessel descended toward the desert floor. Mark's heart hammered, the ramp lowered, and there he was, Ambassador Zurith. He walked forward, posture proud, robes shimmering in the sun, but his eyes, those familiar eyes, softened the moment he saw them. You kept your promise, he said warmly. Eli grinned. So did you. They clasped forearms, human and alien, not as diplomat and civilian, but as equals. Behind Zurith, dozens of alien delegates stepped forward, representing species from across known space. Mark folded his arms. So, what brings the galaxy to my backyard this time? Zurith turned, addressing both Mark and the watching assembly. I have come, he said, voice carrying across the desert, to formally recognize humanity. A hush fell, not as a developing species, not as a curiosity, but as a people worthy of standing among the stars. A ripple moved through the delegates. Zurith raised his hand. The actions of one man and one child demonstrated something rare in this galaxy, compassion without expectation, courage without conquest. He turned to Mark. You protected a stranger not because you had to, but because it was right. Mark shifted awkwardly. I just fixed what was broken. Zurith smiled. Exactly. He gestured to the gathered fleet. From this day forward, humanity is under full interstellar protection. Any threat against this world will be treated as a threat against us all. Gasps echoed across the delegation, some in awe, some in fear, because it was one thing to be powerful. It was another to earn loyalty without demanding it. Eli stepped forward, eyes shining. So, does that mean we're friends? A low, amused sound rippled through the gathered aliens. Zurith knelt to the boy's height. Yes, he said softly, it means we are family. Later that night, the stars burned brighter than ever. Mark sat on the roof of his workshop, Eli beside him, watching unfamiliar constellations shift as alien ships prepared to depart. You ever think about how weird this is? Mark asked. Eli nodded. Yeah, but good weird. Mark smiled. He thought of the day he'd found a wounded alien in the sand, of how close the galaxy had come to violence, of how easily fear could have won. Instead, compassion had. Dad, Eli asked. Eli asked.